Hey folks, I'm back. After the last video, I had a couple of questions about, someone mentioned Kerambits, Kerambits, whatever. Whatever your favorite spelling and pronunciation is. So, first off, I'm not a huge fan of Kerambits. They're kind of a cool tool. They have some strange versatility, but I believe they also have a lot of limitations, and that they are designed specifically for certain things. Okay, they're designed specifically for cutting plants, right? It wasn't a weapon first; it was a tool, right? So just like a lot of martial arts weapons, they start as tools. This one happens to be one that's also pretty wicked and nasty, right? So, let's talk about why it has a ring. It's retention. It's a retention ring, right? It's in case it gets knocked, my hand comes open, I've still got something hooked in there, right? No matter which grip I've got something hooked. My hand is not going to slip off of this thing, right? So I am kind of a fan of retention rings, but more with straighter blades. So I have a couple of knives I've designed myself and a couple that I'm making off another design for a guy, that the blade is much more, there's no talon, there's no curve to it. It's more of a straight knife. Right. Again, it goes back to the things I was talking about last week about holding your blade down and whether the edge is in or the edge is out. Okay, so retention rings, cool. Not only does it help keep it in my hand, I can also use it as like a knuckle duster, right? I don't have to slash every time. I could punch, right, and use this to crack a bone or smack a tooth or something. Right, some of them are even designed, this one's not, but some of them even have a little design. It's like a kind of like a glass breaker or a thumb ramp that puts a little knob on it. That's also something wicked nasty to help to add to the viciousness. So holding a karambit, for the most part, you're going to see people pointer finger through the ring, down, right? That's because it gives you that edge out curve, right, for your slashes and your rips and all that, right? This angle, this angle, this angle a little bit, but mostly it's going to be coming diagonal line, diagonal line, diagonal line, across, right? Again, this one is weird, okay? So, slash, 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 right? Then it gets it. This one, that's not really a thing, okay? This one is for your diagonals. This one really isn't, right? So your template's a little different than a straight edge going down. Similar but different, okay? So there's your functionality, right? What do I not have with something like this? A whole lot of reach, okay? So this becomes a very close-in tool. When I have a partner, I'll do some with this sometime and show you how you're supposed to use this thing. It's not really a blade fighting weapon. It's a little bit more of a murder tool. Saying that, this is your most common grip for a karambit. Okay, the other most common one is going to be pinky through, edge out, like a regular knife, right? It allows you all the motions of a knife and hammer grip or saber grip, right, with the benefit of a retention ring, okay? So you get all your slashes, you get the dexterity and the angles and all that stuff, right? With a curved blade. Okay, so pretty similar to what you would do if your knife was up, Pretty similar to what you would do if your knife was down, right? Okay, edge out, edge out. All right, now, due to the shape of this thing, edge in is weird, right? Especially with the curvature right here, right? See how my finger is now off center? Because my pinky is the farthest thing back anyways. And why in the hell would I hold this way anyways? Like there's no benefit to this. I lose all kinds of functionality on this side. Like, you know, I don't get to stab and rip like I would with a straight blade. You know, this little hooky thing, maybe, right? I get behind somebody and maybe. Not a fan of the idea. So, blade in, ups, you know, and the sword grip, Same thing, blade down and in. My hand doesn't want to close, right? See here, it makes that weird. Now, I flip that around, it makes sense to my hand. But when I flip this way, it doesn't. So really, it's this curvature right here that means you're only really going to be able to use this with the edge out, right? And it's going to make sense in your hand. If you have a karambit at home, like grab it and try to do edge in. Like, well, I don't know why the hell you would do this anyways, but at the same time, you know, it's not the size of the handle or anything. It's the shape of the overall shape of the tool, right? It just doesn't work that way, right? If I'm, you know, I'm going to poke myself in the arm anyways. I don't know how many times I see people fiddling around with these things, and then you see them, you know, oh, you know, a karambit wound. You know, yeah, they start getting fancy, and yeah, they end up poking themselves with it or something. So pretty much your options are limited to edge out, down, or up, right? Here's your dexterity, here's your major functionality. You're not really going to stab with this thing. You can, but there's some special mechanics to that, all right? That's what I want to talk about next, okay? You lose your dexterity, you don't get, I mean, you can do all this stuff, right? Rips and tears and upward strikes and all that, and this is a very convincing weapon like that, but you're losing some things. So stabbies with the curved blade, especially curved in, all right, here is the edge, here is the point, right? My knife is pointing upward technically. But now when I want to stab, I don't do this, right? Because I'm going to hit the back end here. Like I'm going to hit my target with this blunt part, right? Unless you got a double edge. Most karambits are not double edged. I've seen a lot, but most of them aren't. So it doesn't apply to that, but still, I'm not a big fan of even double edged karambits. They do allow for more functionality. Good for them. So when I go to stab, I can't stab like this, right? Like my normal direct thrust is really just going to hit him with the back of the blade. It's not going to dig. It's not going to poke through. So really, it's this. See that arc going down? As soon as it makes contact, it has to tear in and downward, right? It's a claw. Eagle claw, eagle talon, tiger claw, right? It's got to dig to tear, right? So it's this downward motion that is your stab, okay? And that's weird for anybody, like that's weird unless you're used to, hey, right? That extension like with a stick, where you whip it down, or your 1-inch punch, right? Everything's here, pop, right? Here and here. Zack. Now let's think about that same thing down. Right? My wrist isn't going to bend backwards very much. So my stabs, you aren't really stab. You can't really stab with a karambit. You can insert, right? But you can't really, like here's my knuckle guard. Pop. I can get this in, but I don't get a lot of penetration with it like you really need to for an actual stab, right? Now, where does this change? Out here, right? This way, I'm still not stabbing with it, right? This is still a slashing motion, right? Switch it to this way. It's still a slashing motion. It's not a poke, right? I got to rip in and down. It's a weird, weird feeling, right? I'm not saying you can't do it. It's just weird, right? Especially when you're used to straight blades. So again, they're intimidating, right? If someone pulled one of these out, I would probably think an extra twice about messing with them. But in the end, it's limited in its functionality, right? So this is all talking about being slashy and at a distance and all that, right? Next video I'll do with this thing function as a clinch tool, all right? You may see this a little bit in movies. Here's a really good reference. Raid 2, R-A-I-D, Raid 2 kitchen fight scene. It's two dudes going at each other with karambits. And there's some, movie magic going on at the same time, but it's also pretty brutal, right? And they're not doing up close, grapply, clinchy, rip and tear and, grab a hold of you and slice everything out, right? They're using it kind of like a knife fight, like you would see Hollywood knife fight. And it's pretty bloody, it's pretty brutal, and if you like that kind of stuff, it's a pretty awesome reference point. But it's also, this is not a weapon to be at a distance and bouncing in and out and being flashy with, right? Maybe a little bit with this grip, but if you got this grip, it's a touch tool. Right? This is something where I'm getting to the point that I can get somebody and I'm using this angle of this blade to dig in and rip, right? Ripping through whatever I just hit. And the curvature of the blade is what creates the cut, right? So there's different, hand tools and ways to get to where you need to, Hubud, bad arm drill, some things like that I reference. You're not really going to kind of block check counter with it very much. It's mostly coming from your Hubud motion, right? Roof block, pass under, drop this, hit them, rip them. It's a little different type of tool. So that's what I have to say about that. Again, I'll talk about the more clinchy, grapply stuff with this too, where you're grabbing this and using it to hook, right? Hook. You can use a karambit to disable, right? This has the reputation for being like way too deadly. Everything with a blade has a reputation for being way too deadly, right? The reason I like blades is, I like guns too. What red-blooded damn American does not like guns, right? When you have a gun, there's not much finesse to it. You are repeatedly taught, don't shoot to wound. Don't shoot to disable. Shoot him in the leg. No, no. Aim for the box, right? Aim for the melon, aim for the box. Like, you are trying to stop that threat. That gun is a huge force multiplier. Okay? It's not a death ray. You don't hit them once and they just shut off, right? Unless you get a very specific central nervous shot or something like that. But guns do not provide you with the ability to disable an opponent if that option becomes necessary, right? You're using deadly force every time you pull the trigger. Every bullet is meant to kill, right? At least it should be. Because if you're pulling a gun, you better damn well mean it, right? Knives are a little different. Blades do allow for some finesse, right? A gun's a hammer, a knife is a scalpel, kind of thing. You can, if anybody says like, I only train kill shots. I'm like, that's, damn it, man. Get that out of your head. Well, they pulled a deadly weapon on me, so I have every right to kill them. Sure you do. You absolutely do. But why would you if you could suffice to disable them? Why do we defang the snake so much? Right? Why do we aim for here and here any chance we get? Right? Why are we not aiming right here every single time? Why are we not aiming right here every single time? Because if you can disable an opponent, this is high art. L'art grande, as the movie was called. Reference for old people. It's high art. For someone who doesn't train a lot, it's big. It's kind of big and clumsy, and you are going to start like just aiming for necks and trying to, stab and rip through and all that, because you don't have the skill and the ability to disable in the same ways, right? So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that there isn't a necessary time where intent needs to get more mortal. But at the same time, if you have trained yourself to have the options to limit that, then maybe some dumb dude made a mistake, right? Maybe he, tried to mug you, pulled that knife, and you're like, all right, man, you really want to do this? If you have the ability to disable that dude who has made a dumbass mistake, maybe that dude's kids have a father from that point on, right? Big news, big cultural thing, fatherless homes, ruined country, right? So think about that, right? That dude made a mistake. He threatened you with a deadly weapon over something stupid like money. If you don't have that much money, just give it to them, right? Now, if they're trying to take your life, if they try to take your money, it's up to you. But if they're trying to take your life, don't let them, right? But, if that guy made a mistake and he can walk away with some cut tendons and still maybe function in society and function as a family member, right? Not saying people who mug people are going to be great functional members of society or family members, but what if that's the thing that teaches them the lesson that they needed, that they never learned, that changes their path, right? So, like I said, not a big fan of killing people. But when it's necessary, it's necessary. But if you have options, right? If I catch I have my fancy, super deadly Kerambit, and I end up catching their wrist, right? They have the weapon in their hand, and I've managed to get that to right there, right? Boom! That Kerambit's going to do a ton of damage to that hand, right? Do I need to immediately come down right against their neck and finish them? If you train that reflexively, I think you're being irresponsible. Because between moves, right, I cut that wrist, there's a point in time where now that person is literally disabled and disarmed, and now you've just changed the script to the point where you're the bad guy, right? So other opinions may differ. Fine. it's sort of a free country. Yeah, not going to get into that shit. So, but Kerambit, it has limited applications, right? Especially out here. Once you start getting into the huggy stuff, it becomes a more practical tool. All right. Thank you much. See you soon.